Hi, I'm Catherine Moody, and I'm really delighted that you're joining me on this video where we're going to talk about the 10 mistakes that most job seekers are making in their interviews. And I think this is a really important topic because in order to end your job search, you got to have a really good interview. It's not a numbers game. Usually I'm talking to job seekers about how to get into the hidden job market. And people have been using my Fast Formula video library to do just that. And it's very exciting because they're making great connections, hearing about more jobs, and getting more interviews. And then, of course, we come to this problem, that in order to end your job search, you got to have a really good interview. And so I want to help job seekers identify the problems they might be making and then help you solve those problems. When I was in job search and I first was starting, I thought interviewing was going to be really easy. I mean, how hard could it be? We were going to talk about me and my experience, two of my most favorite topics. But then I realized that even though I'm fairly articulate and I did have my resume memorized, I wasn't doing very good in interviews. And so I had to find how to structure an interview answer. And I think it's even more important today because you know what? I think, first of all, there are so many candidates that after a while, most hiring managers won't tell you this, but you know what? Candidates start to all look the same. And the second thing that's critical these days is that I think most of us have adult onset ADD. And what that means is that the longer answer filled with facts is just too much. And you'll see why I call this video blah, 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 10 mistakes that job seekers are making. So let's go and see what those mistakes might be that you're making and how you can fix them fast so that you have a fast conclusion to your job search. In this video, I'm going to take you behind the scenes and share with you what recruiters and hiring managers say after interviews. Some people are going to find this hard to hear, and I didn't want it to be hard for you, but I do understand because this was very hard for me to hear when I was in job search. But I do have to tell you what recruiters and hiring managers will rarely, if ever, share with you. We're going to talk about the mistakes. That's the place to start so that you can really interview and end your job search fast. Once you correct the mistakes that you might be making, you maybe even start to enjoy interviews. So let's go. And you'll notice that I've called this blah, 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 and I'm going to tell you why. So perhaps you can relate to this scenario. I've had so many candidates come back after an interview and say, oh my Lord, I was so good. I was on. My answers were perfect. I nailed it. You know what? They loved me. And I'm sure that I'm going to be seeing an offer. But when I talked to the hiring manager, it was as if they had been in different rooms. The hiring manager would say, oh, we're not going to move forward with that candidate. And it would be things like they didn't make a connection. The hiring manager didn't get a sense of what that candidate could do for them. They got the wrong amount of detail. They didn't interact well with the hiring manager. They were nervous, or they sounded like every other candidate that the hiring manager had talked to. And that's what we're going to correct. So here's mistake one. Mistake one is thinking that you have the whole interview time to impress them, because the reality is you have about that much time. It's really important to know how to impress them early on. Mistake number two, that you leave out two of the three essential components that should be in every answer you give. And let me tell you what those components are. Absolutely, you need to have the facts that will give them the answer, the information that they needed. You also need to be able to market yourself in every answer. And third, you need to be connecting with the person that's interviewing you so that you're building a relationship. Because you know, every person who interviews you is asking themselves, will I like working with this person? Usually job seekers leave out at least two of those essential components. Here's mistake number three. Did you make sure that you had lots of facts in your answers? And that's what most of us have done. We've read our resume and we've got all of the things that we did down and we know what we've done. And so we include all of those facts in their answers. But did you know that you can include too many facts, and what happens is you end up in that blah, blah, blah situation? Here's mistake number four, that you make it a question and answer session rather than a dialogue. So there you are, you're trying to balance, you're hearing the questions, you're trying to give really good answers, lots of facts, The problem is that you're not having a dialogue, perhaps, with the interviewer. And so it starts to become a little bit like a tennis match or a ping pong match. And, it goes back and forth, but it's not a dialogue. The challenge here is that then two things have happened. One is that you are really focusing on you, which I'm going to tell you is not surprisingly the best place to focus when you're in an interview. And secondly, you're not creating a connection with the interviewer and you're not finding out what's really important to them. That's why this is mistake number 4. Here's mistake number 5. You can't tell them in 30 words or 15 seconds why you're the one they should hire. So unless you showed up in gold that day and everybody else showed up in blue, you look just like everybody else. And that is more common than you might realize, that candidates cannot quickly, easily, and in a compelling way tell the hiring manager why they're the best candidate. Why are you the one they should hire? And when you cannot do that, by the end of the day, I have to tell you, it's just as though every one of the candidates was blue. Mistake number 6. You think that, and I did, that the more interviews you do, the better you get. Here's the problem. If you are making any of these mistakes, and you keep making them interview after interview, what you're really doing is perfecting the imperfect, and that's not getting better. Maybe getting easier for you to give those answers that are not as good as they could be, but the answers themselves are not getting better. Here's mistake number 7. Everybody says you really should ask for the job, but do you know that there's a way to ask for the job that they will love, and there's a way to ask for the job that is incredibly irritating to the interviewer, and you need to know the difference. Here's mistake number 8, which I have to tell you, I know so many candidates who've made this mistake. You use language and terms, examples that make you sound like everybody else. And this is another case where at the end of the day, the interviewer says, I've seen 4 people, 7 people, and you know what? Right now, I can't remember them as separate. They've all kind of blended together. And the reason is, it's the blah, blah, blah. It was all of the things that you said really sounded like everybody else. Here's mistake number 9. You think that interviewing, perhaps, is a numbers game. And so in order to win, you just have to do a certain number of interviews and then you'll get the job. But do you know that there are people who have gotten the first job that they interviewed for? And there are people who have been interviewing for 2 years. Now, I know there are a lot of factors that come into play here, but it is not true that it is just a numbers game. Will you eventually get a job? I really want to believe that you will. But wouldn't it be great if you took it out of the numbers game category and put it into a category where you absolutely knock their socks off? And that's not a function of how many interviews you do. It's a function of how you interview. And here's mistake 10. Certainly another one that I made. Well, it's just a matter of answering some questions about my experience. So how hard can that be? And that's usually the total preparation that job seekers make. And I've interviewed so many job seekers in 14 years. And what so many of them have done is they've just thought about their experience when they answer. And they have not done the things that give an answer that really makes them compelling. So what if you could fix these mistakes, any of these mistakes that you're making before your very next interview? Take your interview skills to the next level and really make sure that your next interview is your last one. The next company you interview with is the one that offers you a new job. You can do that for less than the cost of a tank of gas to go out and then celebrate your new job. And in reality, this can actually make you money. And I'm sure you understand that's sort of a given, because the faster you end your job search, the sooner you get your career back on track and start making money. And there's also a money back guarantee, which means you cannot lose, because it is your turn. It's your turn. It's your time to land a job. Let's end your job search now. You need to go from feeling like this in an interview to feeling like this, that you're the one who's leading the pack. So in conclusion, please leave a comment and let me know what you think, or ask any questions that you have. Click on the link below to learn how you can correct these interview mistakes. It is actually much easier than you might think. and fast. And please know that I am sending you all of my best wishes for a fast and outrageously successful job search. Take care.